Welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard here on this rainy Tuesday.
Yes, very noisy rainy Tuesday.
20th day of June. Glad to have you with us. And looks like we've got more rain where that came from. In fact, looking at the forecast, it's going to rain for the rest of time.
Well, isn't that what we said last week? It's just going to rain. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Have fun with that.
But it's going to keep raining. There's a search underway for a missing submersible. We're going to be talking about that this morning. But first, we turn to Anthony Winkin' and Blinken and Nod, good old stinking Blinken, this so-called Secretary of State, who is, shall we say, an incompetent boob, just like all the rest of the people in this administration, and selling us down the river to China.
Well, and selling out every country he can.
Yeah. So when it comes to sellouts, if you wonder why the Saudis and just about every country in Africa is now siding with China, you're going to have a good reason because of this.
Yep.
Going over there and kissing their butts.
Let's look at what Blinken had to say yesterday.
Yeah.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
What? We don't. When did this happen?
I was going to say, when did that policy change?
I thought I heard him say that at first, and I said, did I hear him say what he said? We don't support Taiwan independence?
And the way he said it, Bill, it's like he knew it was wrong. These people are evil. They are going to lead us into something that we've never experienced in my lifetime. And this could get really bad for everyone.
Yeah. If you think this administration's bad, wait till you live under the real communists. This is so frightening and preposterous. Everything that practically everything that you have now depends on these computer chips. I'd like to see us go back to stuff where we didn't need them. I have a friend of mine that bought I think he bought a 1984 Oldsmobile station wagon recently because it's got no technology on it whatsoever other than a radio. Well, and he goes, and you can't track it.
Nope.
You can't, you can't control it from another vehicle or from a computer, from a laptop.
Well, and I think that we've become so dependent on these other countries, but we're in real big trouble, especially if China decides to invade Taiwan, which I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Biden had put out a call, the administration, saying that we need to have everyone in, if you're a U.S. citizen, I recommend that you evacuate Taiwan. That's a huge indicator as to what they were going to do. I was still shocked to hear him say that we do not support Taiwan independence because that's never been our stance on that as the U.S. at all.
Well, we get all sorts of things, Brittany, that were disturbing. I remember about a year or so ago, our granddaughter is married to a soldier, and they started giving out bags of rice to the military, to military families, like 5-pound bags of rice. And we're like, what? That's because we've heard about food shortages and everything else that you have. And if you don't have an emergency food supply, I highly recommend you start when you listen to these Patriot 4 Patriots supplies and others. There are several other companies that do this. Valley is one of them. But you need to get yourself some emergency food because the bad times could be coming. And we've got an administration that is kissing the butt of the communists and the Communist Chinese Party. And it's just disgusting. It is frightening. And we need to do something about it right now. And our politicians, those who still are Americans, need to start standing up, especially against the news media, that's popularity is just about down there with cockroaches. So this has to stop, and it has to stop now. We need to do something about this immediately, if not sooner. This is dangerous. We are in trouble, and there's no candy coating this.
Well, I also think, Bill, it's not just the media, it's what social media has been able to do. And the 30-second clips, the 1-minute clips that people are seeing are typically not the news clips from independent media. It's the mainstream media that you're seeing. So that's what people believe is, happening, and that, everything's hunky dory. It's really the Republicans ruining everything, right?
Yeah. Just remember, with all the stories that we are hearing now, especially everything that's coming out about the corona, the virus and everything that
The
was
COVID-19 vaccine.
COVID-19 and coronas. I was thinking of cigars, but nevertheless, the COVID-19 and everything that we're hearing out of the Wuhan lab and the stories that are coming out now. One of the scientists that was working on a vaccine at the time was mysteriously fell off the roof of the building of the Wuhan lab. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Amazing. What was he doing experimenting on the roof? Just out of curiosity. But all of these stories that we're having coming out now, if you the mainstream media has gotten to the point where if you hear the story that they're telling, think exactly the opposite. How have they been lying to us about the Russian hoax, everything else, and what they're accusing Donald Trump of is what they have been doing. It's right out of Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, that says accuse the other side of what you're doing.
Well, the other thing is, so Karl Marx, he was a total loser.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that people are following him, I mean, I didn't know a lot about him, but he was in a documentary that I was watching, and I was like, he's a total loser. Why would anyone follow this person?
Oh, he was the biggest freeloader in
exactly.
the world.
No wonder he loved Marxism.
Yeah, yeah. And a fat slob. I don't think he'd seen his feet in 30 years. It was just, and just living off the, quote, fat of the land, pun intended, and was always mooching off somebody else.
Yeah,
Frederick Engels, his big buddy and financial contributor.
Well, and no one talks about that, though. I was shocked to find out how big of a loser he was. Yeah. I was just baffled.
In fact, that's in Jesse Kelly's new book, The Anti-Communist Manifesto, that I highly recommend to you. It's flying off the shelves, fortunately. One of the top sellers on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everything else. I'm only about halfway through it, but boy, I'll tell you, it is frightening. And it's frightening what the communists have in mind, what they have done to people in the past. And believe me, if past is prelude, we're in for a heavy ride, and for this coward and this backstabber Anthony winking and blinking and stinking, saying that we support a one China policy. When did that start? They even had, and of course, they're trying to shove these electric cars down our throats, and unfortunately, we're going to be building them here. But we're depending on China for most of the technology for these things, and most of the material. It's just disgusting because we won't go after our own oil. We won't go after our own minerals that we have here. We got cobalt here. We don't have to go We don't have to get it from slaves in Africa, but that's where we're getting it.
Well, here's the other thing, Bill. What do you think is going to happen if we do have some sort of, this is obviously, hopefully, my imagination, but if we do have the communist takeover, do you think that they're going to force us to drill our own oil then, when they get to benefit from it?
Yeah. Of course. That's why they've got building more coal power plants over in China all the time.
Well, I was going to say, China, they're not held to any ESG. That's amazing. Why do we still buy from them?
Yeah. In fact, all those islands, artificial islands that they were building out in the Pacific Ocean and killing coral reefs and everything. Where were the environmentalists on that?
It's interesting how, the U.S., for all the good it has done, we're still always going to be, trying to do the best we can. We do the most out of anyone, and they still come after us and not the other countries. I'm just, it baffles me.
Somebody once, I think it was one of the famous Englishmen who said, I think it was Winston Churchill, as a matter of fact, who said, America will finally do the right thing after they do all the wrong things first. Said, let's do this. I mean, who thinks it's a good idea? There is a front page story on the Epic Times last week of the new appliances that are coming out. So they're going to cost more and do less. I can remember
Exciting.
I remember when they started telling Whirlpool and all the other Maytag and others, this is 15, 20 years ago, saying you need to make smaller washing machines so they won't use as much water. And, so a smaller tub so they won't use as much water. Okay. So you have to do 2 loads instead of 1 load, which means you're going to be using actually more water. I mean, this is stupid government think. When you decide, okay, we're the smaller. It reminds me of when I was an Army reservist. We had to get we there was the crisis went through. There was a guy who won an award in the Army, said he would help save paper by using fewer trees and things of that nature by making the paper smaller. So instead of having 8.5 by 11, you had like 7 by 10 or something like that. They didn't consider the fact that the Army had 5 million copy machines, none of which would accommodate the new paper.
So it would cost how much money to switch over?
Yeah, and I'm not even sure they did. I think they just abandoned the project. But this guy still got his medal, or his award for saving all this
for having an idea, huh?
Yeah, for the smaller paper that was going to help save the planet. This is the kind of stupidity that continues to go on, and you figure, who signs off on this? Who pays for this besides you and me, of course?
I was going to say the taxpayer, and a lot of this stuff really, I'm still upset about the budget that they passed here because we are paying to have training done for people working on these EVs. That is not our responsibility as a taxpayer. I mean, they're private corporations. They need to pay for that. We should not be paying for that. But the government has gotten involved in business deals. And so guess what? Now it's the taxpayer's problem, and we get to pay for it, and we get no benefit from it. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and the cars cost more. They use more of natural resources. I mean, they're heavier, which means they're going to do more road damage. I mean, the whole thing is just so ridiculous.
Well, I was also thinking about that accident that happened over the weekend on 95, and everyone started to get off of 95 and came across Pooler Parkway and onto 16. And if you have an electric car and you're stuck in traffic and you haven't charged that bad boy, what happens?
Yeah, I don't know. But they made a big deal of a story came out last week that said that they have come up with a new technology now that the cars can go 600 miles between charges.
Oh.
Like they're making that a big deal. Okay, well, it is a big deal. I mean, that instead of 300 miles, 600 miles, that's nice. But at the same time, where do you get it charged?
Well, the taxpayer is paying for us to put in all of these charging stations.
Yeah, and the charging stations, of course, powered by diesel fuel.
Well, did the government pay for gas stations? I'm just curious.
Not that I can recall. The government didn't fund Thomas Edison for making the light bulb.
It's interesting how that's working these days.
When I used to show kids around our radio station, and I showed them the 1947 RCA transmitter that was about the size of a freight car, and then showed them the transmitter we have today, which is about the size of a bread box. Said this wasn't done by government fiat saying you've got to make this thing smaller and smaller to use less electricity. It developed over a period of 50 years. And it wasn't, and broadcast electronics and Gates and all the other people that make transmitters now didn't get, and Harris didn't get any government subsidies for coming up with research to make these things smaller.
Yeah, we allowed the private market to
do its job.
Yep, innovation. So
yeah, that's how we became the #1 country in less than 200 years. And now we're throwing it all down the drain. All right, coming up next, some people who may be in real trouble if they're still alive in this submersible that was going down to see taking tourists of the Titanic. We haven't heard from it in some time. We'll talk about that next. Stay real. At Get Real America, we are focused on Savannah, but we'd like to hear from other communities as well. We have a lot in common.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Tuesday. It's raining, so keep the rain gear near.
Yes, make sure you take an umbrella and that you drive safely out there on those roads. That seems to pool up quite a bit here in Savannah.
Yeah, boy. But we're doing the best we can with all the drainage projects that we've had. But when you're at or below sea level and it's high tide, there ain't a lot of places for the water to go. So there's that. There's a lot of places that, speaking of water, there is this search underway for a missing submersible, sometimes referred to as a submarine, used to take these tourists to see the wreckage of the Titanic. And the 5-person submersible was reported overdue Sunday night, about 435 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland. Multiple law enforcement agencies are involved in the search, including our Coast Guard. Now, they might be able to find it, but the Navy's going to have to. Navy's the only one that's got the equipment that's going to be able to rescue them, depending on what's happened here.
Bill, I mean, what a cool experience that you think you're getting, but that freaks me out. So water, oh man, water.
I wish I had that kind of money to get this cool experience, because one ticket costs $250,000. So, that's a trip. If I told my wife we were going to be taking, she would, well, let's just say that my marriage might be over.
Yeah.
But
honey,
I spent $500,000 on our vacation. We're going to go to the Titanic.
Yeah, I think that would be a problem. Unless you're a millionaire, which most people on this submarine were.
Well, as Hamish Harding, he was a British, UK billionaire, reported on board the submersible. This is a 5-person submersible. It was reported missing. It was overdue. It is on Sunday night. With the modern technology that we have, why can't we find this thing? You would think it'd have, kind of emergency type blinkers and stuff. Now, this thing can go down to over 13,000 feet.
I think that's part of the problem, is that there aren't a lot of things that can go down that deep.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason I think they're having such a hard time locating it, and they don't know if it got lost.
Just think about regular submarines can hardly go below like 1,200 to 1,500 feet.
Well, this thing is tiny too. It's like, it's pretty small.
So I'm wondering, they say they've got enough oxygen, if they're still alive, they've got enough oxygen till Thursday in this thing. But my question, was there any kind of food on? I'm sure there's some sort of emergency food, food bars or something of that nature. But what kind of sanitation facilities do they have, AKA latrine or something of that nature, or as they refer to it in the Navy as the head? So, I mean, you got to go to the bathroom at some point. So you've got 5 people on this little thing. That could get nasty in a hurry.
Yes.
Meanwhile, but and I know you want to still be alive, but this is serious. But why we can't find this thing is amazing. Or what's happened, that there's some sort of you would think they would have some kind of an emergency balloon or something. They could press a button, and maybe all the electronics is gone. Interesting report this morning on Fox and Friends that somebody mentioned. Well, a CBS News reporter went down in this thing a couple of years ago, or about a year ago, and he said, as nice as this thing, as good as this thing works, he said he was kind of questioning some of the technology that they had on board. He said this thing was being guided by a Nintendo device of some sort. Now, if you're charging people $250,000 per ticket, you might want to be able to you might want to buy the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
And if you have some sort of electrical problem, you've got some backup batteries or something along those lines. Unless there's some sort of catastrophic failure where this thing is cracked open and they're all dead now. This doesn't look good. But keep them in your prayers. But here's the latest that we know so far.
G. Michael Harris is a Titanic expedition leader and founder of RMS Titanic Inc. All right, so G, you know people that are trapped on this thing?
Yes, unconfirmed reports that there are 3 people on there out of the 5 that one of them used to be one of my sub-pilots, and it's just a sad day for our industry. I'm so sorry to hear that. The oxygen situation, is there any way to remedy that? No, we carry O2 bottles with us in the submersible, and you also have CO2 scrubbers, and you know, the O2 will last longer than your CO2 scrubbers, and if those CO2 scrubbers go, and depending on what actually happened at depth, just not feeling good about it. All right. What's this thing like to be inside of, and what exactly are you doing when you're going down to the Titanic wreck site? Well, when we deploy, it's usually a 2.5-hour drop down to the wreck site itself. We go down 3,980 meters, and we spiral down a corkscrew action about 3 degrees per second to land right basically in front of the bow of Titanic. Once we get down there, then we begin our grid searches and our research on, you know, the decay and everything that's going on with Titanic. What could possibly have happened? Worst situation is, you know, something happened to the hull, and our fear is that, you know, it imploded at around 3,200 meters. And is there anything that the U.S. Navy can do right now? No. I mean, I don't see anything that can happen at this point. I mean, I'm trying to be, you know, somewhat cautious, and, you know, don't want to basically be the naysayer of what's going on. But when you're talking 6,000 pounds per square inch, it is a dangerous environment. More people have been to outer space than to this depth of the ocean. And when you're diving in these situations, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's. You have to do everything absolutely perfect and by the book. And, you know, throwing a bunch of tourists in a new sub that, you know, was just created over the last several years, it's not looking good, Jesse. All right. Well, thanks for joining us in this tender time, and we're going to be praying for everybody on that sub.
So here are some of the statistics. The submersible has a 96-hour oxygen supply, but of course, if it implodes, it doesn't make any difference. The 5-person submersible, it weighs 20,000 pounds, is capable of diving, as we said, 13,120 feet. And it says that's like 6,000 pounds per square inch going on this thing. It's just, I'm thinking maybe this thing imploded. I don't know.
Well, this guy's a professional. He actually does the excursions just to do research on the Titanic.
Right.
And then to have someone put tourists in it, like he was saying, I mean, pretty dangerous when it's only, this sub was created in the last couple of years. So there's probably a lot more testing that probably should have happened before they were cleared to start going in with tourists and things like that. Because it is pretty scary to think about. I wonder how many, does it say how many dives it's actually done?
I've not seen any statistics on that. It's interesting. Do you know that, you know, of course, Robert Ballard, I did a couple of interviews with him over the years on the radio. Delightful guy. And he was telling me about when it finally came out, of the real story of how they discovered the Titanic. Do you know the story behind it?
No.
It was actually there was actually a top secret mission. We lost 2 nuclear submarines back in the 1960s, the Thrasher and I think of the Scorpion, that went down, and we don't know why. And he was on a top secret mission to find these 2 submarines and to see if the nuclear reactors were cold and not contaminating the water. You don't want nuclear reactors contaminating the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
It doesn't sound like the best idea we ever had.
No.
So the mission was to find out if those reactors were safe, and they were, as we find out now. But the whole thing was billed as him looking for the Titanic. The Navy gave him the money to say, you can look for the Titanic after you find these 2 submarines.
Okay.
Then you go on your Titanic mission. And but he said the thing that they learned from going after those subs helped them find the Titanic because they discovered there's always a debris field. Once you figure out where this thing might be and you're searching, you start looking for debris and you start following that. He had 10 days left on the mission when they found the two submarines. He had 10 more
Wow.
days to find the Titanic. And there had been missions, hundreds of missions before to try to find it. So the window was pretty narrow. They start looking for this thing, and last known location, and they start going, and suddenly they find this. They start seeing this debris field. There's a commode. There's a doll. There's something. They said, oh, and they start following, and I can't even imagine the elation. I've seen the pictures and some of the video of the elation when they finally find this thing, because it was incredible.
It's wild.
I can't, and I talked to him about that, and you're just over the top excited that here she is after I think it was like 70 years
Wow.
down there before they found it, and it's just an amazing story. But what's also an amazing story on something similar to this, maybe not, but right up the road in Charleston. I highly recommend you go up there sometime and go to the Hunley Museum, the Confederate submarine that was used in the first time a submarine had been used in warfare, and sunk one of the Navy's most prized ships in the Civil War. And but the Hunley did not return from her mission, and had been on the ocean, bottom of the ocean for 150 years or whatever. Finally found this thing thanks to Clive Cussler and his crew from Numa. Clive Cussler, a top-selling, in New York Times best-selling author, who wrote the book. In fact, one of his first books was "Raise the Titanic." And it was also made into a major motion picture. Great picture, great movie, and so they finally found the Hunley, and they found everything inside pristine.
Wow.
They found all the skeletal remains of all. They were in exact position of where they were. This thing was so tiny. I mean, it was. You talk about claustrophobia.
Oh, yeah.
This thing was small. The submersible we're talking about this morning is small, but this thing was just amazing. That these guys, and it was hand cranked. There was
Oh my
nothing.
gosh.
There was no engine involved other than human power. So you got 5 or 6 guys that are turning this crank to turn the propeller to move this thing forward. And the torpedo was basically a bomb on the end of a long rod that they put up against the ship, and then you're supposed to back off. Now, and so they backed off, but we don't know exactly if there was some damage done, and they had to, and eventually sank the sub. So they're doing more research at that. But the sub is in Charleston, and it's in a huge aquarium type tank to keep it preserved with all special
Oh.
chemicals in it so that it won't rust and deteriorate anymore. But they were very, very one of my favorite people. Is a forensic pathologist here who helped with we go up there and do the research, and he said pretty much are pristine, perfect skeletal remains. They were at their station. Didn't look like there was any panic of any sort.
Interesting.
No fighting, or they try to get out of the sub or whatever. They died at their station.
Wow.
And it is an amazing and to look at this thing, and they've got cutouts that they've made a replica of it with a cutout to show you, and you can actually turn the crank and turn the propeller, and it's just, it's a good Lord, and you got 5 or 6 guys in this thing plus the captain, and it's an amazing story, and something that's worth a 2-hour drive up to Charleston from here to see it.
I'll have to check that out, Bill. It
Yeah.
sounds very interesting.
And they've got some great videos
Okay.
that were done as well. So
Okay.
it's really cool.
And our friend Steve Stanton is with us this morning, and he commented on the submarine search that it's not looking good.
No,
It's not.
Steve, truer words were never spoken.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Coming up next.
When we get back, we'll be seeing what's going on with Space Force in Florida.
Yeah. Apparently wokeness is not out of the question. At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like,
rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up,
I want to be offended
by my coworkers
and walk around the office
on eggshells
and have my words policed
by HR. Words like
grandfather,
peanut gallery, long time no see,
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety
and do workplace sensitivity training
all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist.
I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was that they had come to us, because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Here it is, Tuesday, 20th day of, actually a summer eve.
Yes.
Tomorrow's the first day of summer.
It does not feel
or
like
actually,
summer
maybe
right now.
today's the first day of summer. Whatever it is, but it's getting hot. Tomorrow is the longest day of the year.
Long day of rain, that is,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Sun up the longest. But yes. Wow. It is, and then that gets shorter and shorter. It's all downhill till Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's exciting.
Well, for real.
Our friend Steve says, love the commercial that is a parody on wokeness. I laugh every time I hear it. I'm just saying.
It is terrific.
Those little kids are funny.
Need more of that stuff. I'd like
Yes.
to see it on the major networks, but I bet you they wouldn't. I bet you $10 million they wouldn't air it.
You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct.
Yeah, because they cry poor mouth all the time, but they turn down multi-million-dollar contracts like the guys in Nine Line that wanted to wanted to advertise in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. No, you guys promote America and guns. So
you guys are evil.
Yeah. So
how dare you be patriotic here?
Yeah, that spot is $5 million. We don't know if you have that kind of finances. Tyler said, "Yeah, we do. You can look at their bank account. We got the money." Jeez, just pathetic.
Yep, that's been happening for a long time, Bill.
Yeah, boy. Speaking of pathetic, how about the commander of a space force, this lieutenant general, who ought to have all three of her stars stuck where the sun don't shine?
There's a lot of these people that just need to go.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be taken out of the military. They've been corrupted and politicized everything in the military, which I think has not been good for the American people. It is not good for people that are in the military, which feel stuck in the military. I feel bad for those people.
Yeah. So this woman or man or whatever the hell she is decides that makes these assignments, not recruiting assignments, but military assignments as to who's going where, and she's afraid of Florida.
It's very scary down there.
Uh-huh.
Since January of this year, more than 400 anti-LGBTQ plus laws have been introduced at the state level. That number is rising and demonstrates a trend that could be dangerous for service members, their families, and the readiness of the force as a whole. When I look at potential candidates, say for squadron command, I strive to match the right person to the right job. I consider their job performance and relevant experience first. However, I also look at their personal circumstances, and their family is also an important factor. If a good match for a job does not feel safe being themselves and performing at their highest potential at a given location, or if their family could be denied critical health care due to the laws in that state, I am compelled to consider a different candidate and perhaps less qualified. Those barriers are a threat to our readiness, and they have a direct correlation to the resiliency and well-being of our most important operational advantage, our people.
Okay, I don't think there's anybody less qualified than she is. So this is preposterous. These aren't anti-LGBTQ X04 laws.
No, this is propaganda. I think that the military is also getting really good at this too.
Mm-hmm.
They've made everything about, we should be able to have drag shows. We should pay for all of these trans surgeries. It's good for the military to have all these people in there.
It's good for morale. We need to keep up the morale, and it hurts our readiness. Are you kidding me? Do you look when you look at what we've just talked about earlier about China and how much trouble we're in with those people, and they're teaming up with everybody else in the damn world except us. What do you think is going to happen? And this is, and for this woman to, or whatever she is, whatever she goes by, says that she might send somebody less qualified. By the way, it's not what the concern of the family is, as we used to say as they used to say in the Army. If we wanted you to have a wife and kids, we'd have issued them to you. You sign up for a job and you go where the military.
You signed up to be ordered.
Yes, I was commissioned as a Signal Corps officer. Okay, and there is a clause in there because I read it. It says the needs of the service are paramount, which means if they didn't need me in the Signal Corps, even though I was a signal officer and been trained as such, they could send me to an infantry unit if they needed more infantry officers. And my job was to salute and say, yes, sir. Not, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm qualified for that. I don't know. Well, you get qualified for it. Now, I was single at the time, so I didn't have to worry about taking a wife and family with me.
Well, my dad was in the military, and we lived on an army base in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And, the reason that my dad didn't re-up is because he didn't want to be away from us all the time. And it just got to the point where, he was being asked to go places that he could not take us.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, he got out early and he served his term, but he did not re-up for that reason. And those are decisions that people have to make. But people that choose their career in the military that are now going through this, I don't know a lot of people that are like scared of Florida. Most people are like, I kind of love Florida. I kind of like to go there.
Yeah, you ought to be scared of California.
Oh, terrified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
California is something else. But I do think that what are we going to do, Bill? They have made it so, number one, we don't have people going into the military. The people that are in the military are, they're able to be trans or non-binary or whatever they want to be. And then there are these people that signed up for the military. They're at the end of their career, but they might have 5 or 10 years left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have to finish it out, but they have to deal with all of this crap now.
Exactly.
It's not what the military was about.
I was hoping that, our son was going to serve 20 years, and at least he could, and by now he would have, and would have a pension. Mm-hmm. But he got out because he was passed over 3 times for promotion, and his commanders were just absolutely just gobsmacked that he did on the third turn down, because they said, because every one of it, and I'm not saying this because he's my son, technically stepson, but the fact that he, we know him and love him and say, oh yeah, he deserves these promotions. He did deserve these promotions. He was there when this is when the Dalai Lama was still president. So, so that communist bastard. So we had he kept getting passed over, despite the fact that every one of his the office, every soldier gets a report written on them once a year on how well they were doing from their commanders. Every one of his commanders, to a commander, said this is the finest NCO we ever worked with. Knows how to follow orders. You don't have to tell him twice. He knows what he's doing. He does it. You don't have to go behind him and check on whether it's been done or not. It's done. And the fact that he never got his 5th stripe or his 6th stripe that he should have is just pathetic. And the fact that and finally he just said, after he was passed over the 3rd time, he said, I see the light of this situation, and left after 17 years of service. 3 more years and he would have gotten, qualified for some sort of a pension.
Wow.
But
that's but how many people do you think that's happened to?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the sad part about this is we're losing good military people.
And they targeted good military people. The Air Force had several colonels and lieutenant colonels that were on fast track to general, that they accused of leaking some nuclear these were missile technicians. These guys were in charge of our nuclear missiles. These were the guys that said whether to launch or not if the big one went down. And they were drummed out of the service because they said they had breached some nuclear technology or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. Don't believe it is hard to say this now. Don't believe anything you're hearing from this administration. Don't believe anything you're hearing from most of the news media. It is all a lie. It's like all the Donald Trump stuff, all this stuff that you're hearing about Trump, about all these when you see these pictures that the media wants to show you of secret documents, broken open boxes and lying all over the floor and all over, they were all over Mar-a-Lago. There was one, I'm sure there was one out on the 18th green or something. Mm-hmm. All that is a lie. Or this was FBI doing this, mm-hmm. and then taking those pictures so they'd have some excuse as to why they went there.
Yep, and it's all over 102 pages
mm-hmm.
is what this
yeah.
is. And I'm sorry,
as we showed you, last good on Greg Kelly of Newsmax of showing you 106 pages or whatever it was, mm-hmm. and he puts it in one of these boxes. Those bank boxes, yeah, those bank boxes that they had. It didn't fill a third of it.
Nope. I mean, it's ridiculous. Lots of propaganda going on. So make sure you do your own research. And our friend Steve Stanton says, "Wow, a politician in uniform. That she is. She is something else."
Exactly right. It was one of the reasons that their son didn't want to become an officer. We kept telling him that you're qualified. You ought to go to OCS. And he said, "No, too much politics involved. I'll stay an NCO." All right, coming up next.
There are some good things happening around the country.
Yes.
And we're excited to share those with you.
Here's something to cheer about next.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you on board on this Tuesday morning. Before we get into the final, going down to the home stretch here, there is a story this morning I think is interesting about how Bud Light executives could finally answer for destroying their brand. And they said might be able to answer to maybe the customers themselves, but shareholders. There's a shareholders meeting coming up here in just a few days, and it could be curtains for some of these Anheuser-Busch executives.
Well, I believe the terminology is they have a fiduciary responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to their shareholders,
something along those
to
lines,
behave
yeah.
responsibly with people's money.
Yeah, I love fiduciary.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah, but Bud Light has been dethroned after 2 decades of America's #1 best-selling beer. There's now Modelo, which is also made by Anheuser-Busch, so, go figure. But nevertheless, the Bud Light brand has been permanently, and I heard an interesting analysis the other day. Said, what's it going to take to get them back in their good graces? They said it's generational. It's going to have to go. It's going to have to come from the next generation of beer beer drinkers for this thing to come back.
Well, and I just don't know. At least for me, I think it's insulting the way that they've handled it.
Exactly.
They've treated their customers like they're stupid and that they can pander to them. You didn't do the right thing in the first place. You never apologized, and you keep doubling down. I'm sorry. I don't think that people are really willing to. And the other thing is I don't think Gen Z or these people graduating from high school that are going to be beer drinkers in 3 years. Let's be honest, they're probably underage drinking, but that they are going to be drinking Bud Light either, because people associate it with Dylan Mulvaney, and I'm sorry, boys don't like to be made fun of.
Yeah, they had a group of Todd Pyro and Carly Shimkus this morning on Fox and Friends First had a group of Gen Zers on, and all of them were very level-headed. They were worried about women being kicked out of women's sports being destroyed. They're worried about the economy. All the things that the rest of us are worried about, that the media keeps telling you that Gen Z is from another planet. No, they're all worried about the same things, and they're extremely concerned about it.
Well, like I've told you before, I think that we're going to see an interesting shift with Gen Z because of what the lockdowns did to their lives and how it impacted their ability to play sports, for them to interact with their classmates, and just what freedom actually means to them after going through that experience in that environment.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
So I'm here for it. I
Meanwhile,
hope that they are more conservative.
Yep. Ending it on a positive note.
Yes, always a positive note. I think that we talk a lot about just what's going on in Hollywood, the fact that they're pushing a lot of this stuff out to our children, and just in everything we watch nowadays. There's always a wokeness component to it. I know that people are, getting pretty tired of it, but Tyrese, who has been in the Fast and the Furious films, he was an R&B artist as well. He's actually speaking out about what's going on in Hollywood.
As much as I'm supposed to be promoting this movie and talking about my album, I just feel like we're in competition right now because they are trying to normalize the devil. They are trying to the devil is on the main stage at award shows and in every video and signs and symbols. And I said, you know what? We need to stop treating our relationship with Jesus like the little buddy that you talk to before you go to bed at night, and not be more vocal about all the things that God means to us and all of the things that God has brought us through. Because there's been a lot of moments that you didn't post about. But yet how did God decide to get me through this?
Yeah, man.
And they going above and beyond to promote the devil. And it's pissing me off because the devil worshipers used to be real secretive, going down in the basement, this secret world. Now they just
they on the device too.
Yeah,
believe that. Yeah. I do want to come back and I want to talk to you about Fast 10 as well.
So I think it's interesting that we now have people speaking out about how we need to talk about more God, what God does for us, and being more grateful for Him. So. I do think that that's a big deal, especially in the Hollywood environment that we're seeing now. And he just had a movie released, I think it's Fast and the Furious 10, which I think is interesting because he wasn't
We need more Fast and Furious movies, just like we need more books about Harry Styles.
Or like Marvel movies. We have so many of those,
Yeah,
too.
boy.
But anyways, I just think that Steve Stanton said they will cancel him. I mean, they can try, but that movie's out. And people, they love that franchise of movies. I mean, I was good at like one, but, I guess it keeps people entertained. And I'm not sure what kind of wokeness component there is to it. And there might not be. I haven't seen one in any of the Fast and Furious. But
But thank God, Sylvester Stallone didn't make Rocky 6.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yes. Well, and, Bill, I think that we are also seeing a movement. I was listening to something yesterday. It was actually John Fredericks. He was talking about his son. If you don't know who John Fredericks is, he has a radio station and, he's a conservative guy. But he was talking about how his son is playing football at the college level, baseball at the college level, and how many of the athletes are now on the field with a cross on their neck. And
you know how that started? When the football player that was hurt and almost killed, the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
And they all of a sudden everybody started kneeling around him and praying. I mean, they even mentioned and said prayer on ESPN, for goodness sakes. So you could see the tide turning here.
Yeah. So I think that those are like important things that we start to notice with these young people, that they are, you know, putting their faith on display, which I think is super important, because I think we've seen people draw back from that. But he was talking about that yesterday, which I found quite interesting, because he's like, I think that we've been told a lie also about our young people.
No.
I think that they are, you know, more religious, and they, you know, are probably more conservative than the media gives them credit for. And one of the things that I saw that was super hopeful for me over the last week or so is that they had a march in Seattle, and it was young people, and it wasn't people twerking. It wasn't rainbow flags. It wasn't this disgusting display. It was a group of religious teenagers and young adults. So let's take a look at that.
24?
14. Oh, no, 24.
So they're not tearing down anything. They're not burning any buildings. They're not saying any bad words. But they finally, you know, they've decided, you know, we've had enough.
Yeah, I just am so hopeful, especially in a place like Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle is definitely not a city that I would see this coming from, but I do think that we're seeing like good things emerge from the evil that we've seen over the last, you know, several years, and I'm just hopeful for the future when I see children like this.
Yeah, and whenever you see this pushback, and also this goes to the video that we saw from the classroom in California of the kids that were being shown all this LGBT crap, and they said, "Come on, we're supposed to be learning math there, aren't we?" Stop
like,
showing
"Gross,
this. Yeah,
don't."
and the teacher got her shorts in a wad and threatened them with Saturday school if they didn't start behaving and kowtowing to the communist propaganda they were showing.
And one of my favorites, actually, Bill, has been Massachusetts. Those kids that showed up to school for Pride Day, and they said that their pronouns were USA. They were in red, blue, and white. And, you know, I think that we're seeing these young people, like I said, I do think that the lockdowns impacted what freedom actually means to them, because they lived through a time in which they did not feel so free.
Exactly, and it's encouraging to see this, and then of course you have the pushback from the media every time on something like this. Are we becoming too patriotic?
There's no such thing.
Well, according to Mammoth Nation, perhaps so.
Make no mistake, America's in trouble. It's been coming for a long time, but now it's at our doorstep. They want to take away our freedom, our identities, our guns. They want us to be like China. We're not going to let it happen. We're going to win this war, but it'll take all of us working together. Now's the time to unite and support your fellow conservatives. We provide you with a safe place to shop, learn, and give to the causes and values that you care about. Join Mammoth Nation and become a lifetime member today.
That commercial got kicked off of the air for being too patriotic.
Yeah, too patriotic.
But I think that we should
evaluate that statement for a minute. Too patriotic. If remember So Damn Insane and some of these other people in some of these other countries, if they don't think you're patriotic enough, they'll kill you.
Well, and it's sad to see people that don't have any pride in our country, but yet they will they say how racist we are, but they also have been given so much in their life just by being born an American.
Well, what's sad to see is the fact that these people have so much power and in such positions of power.
Well, and I'm also talking about these young people on college campuses that have been manipulated by these professors.
Exactly.
And, you know, I think that we've put professors on a pedestal that definitely they need to be knocked down from.
Where else do you get a job? You know, I wish I'd had a job where after you're on the job for 5 years and you can't be fired.
Must be nice, Bill.
Yeah, must be nice. Yeah, I'd like to have had that in my radio position.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't today the anniversary?
It is. Yeah, I was doing my last show, unbeknownst to me, I was doing my last show this time last year. Yeah, so.
That's pretty wild, but.
Happy anniversary.
Yes, well, I'm glad that we're on this wild adventure together, Bill.
Me too. All right, this worked out well.
Yes. Well, that's going to do it for us in this Tuesday edition of Get Real America.
Hype for the Hump Day edition tomorrow, like it or not.
Yes. Download our app, The Local Spin, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Stay real.